Hello everyone, I'm Bruffy1322 and this video is going to show the fastest fully upgraded vehicles in the GTA Online Supercars class in terms of lap time. As always, the position counter is in the top left with the best lap time the vehicle achieved in the top right, and for this 2020 series I'll be showcasing the non-raceable vehicles first. So even though, for example, the Vigilante is in the Supercars class and has the quickest lap time overall, since it can't be used in regular supercar races, it's not going to be included in the main list. We start the regular raceable vehicles list with the Bullet in 44th place overall. This video only focuses on track performance, so if you're interested in top speed where braking, cornering and acceleration aren't relevant, check the link in the description for the top speed testing series, and if you want to know more information about this testing, including the extent to which it's accurate and how useful it is for you personally, have a read of the full description as everything that you need is in there. This video lists all vehicles and is correct as of the Casino Heist update. For any supercars added after that or other classes of cars, check the playlist link in the second line of the description, and feel free to check out my Patreon or become a YouTube member if you want to support this work and get testing results of any new cars a little bit early. So the supercars class has changed a lot over the years. We've now got 47 cars in this class, 44 of which are raceable, with obviously some originals like the Bullet, the Voltic and the Adder not even making the top 40 for the raceable cars list. From 7 cars back in 2013 to 47 now, the Supercars class really has seen a lot of additions over the years. And it's fair to say that the Taipan is probably the worst of those additions, being in 42nd place. It does a really good job of being a relatively new addition that's very expensive, but slow enough to get a lap time almost identical to the 2013 Voltic. So as we're seeing this first group of cars, that the 104, 103, 102 levels of lap time, there's not that many cars here first of all, because there's decent gaps between a few of them, and they're significantly down on ability in comparison to a lot of the cars that we're going to see in the supercars class. There's a lot of sports cars, for example, that get lap times around this area. These are kind of sports car level lap times, it's at least in terms of the cars that you see in the sports cars class on average. Now, some of these vehicles do have their own strengths. It might be top speed, decent acceleration, things like that. But the problem that these vehicles have in this sort of original group is that there's so many vehicles later on in the list that also have those same strengths, and they've also got other areas to make them more rounded. And when it comes to lap time, really it's traction and grip around the corners that is ultimately going to give the lap time more so than anything else, certainly more than top speed. Top speed has a very minor effect in terms of the lap times that they're going to get, and acceleration and braking is certainly to a lesser extent than what traction would be and grip around the corners. So really that's one of the biggest issues that a lot of these cars have, is that they simply don't have the grip around the corners when you're pushing the car at as quick as it could possibly go to give a better lap time essentially. And as we can see, the Entity XF is only down in 28th place, just missing out on basically this big group from 27th all the way up to 11th place of 17 cars that only are separated by 1 second, which is pretty incredible, just over a second really. From the Turismo R in 27th place, we're going to see 17 cars, and we're only going to move 1 second further up the list in terms of lap time. So it's crazy. Just keep an eye on those lap times and how close they are between each. You're going to see, a tenth of a second, half a tenth of a second between each subsequent vehicle. And this is kind of the golden area of the supercars class. If you're wanting to do some competitive racing with supercars and you want to have a variety of cars, this is the area to do it in. And if you restrict your racing to these 17 vehicles, you can have lots of different cars and choose any one of them and be competitive. Now, obviously, as always, when it comes to lap time or testing in general, different tracks will suit different cars. Tracks that have more reliance on cornering will obviously suit cars that are better in cornering. If the track has more straights, then cars that have higher top speeds will be slightly better. But these are all so close together that really you can choose any in most situations, and it'll be a very, very close race, assuming driver skill is equal. Now, a few things to point out, obviously, because some of you might be seeing this sort of thing for the first time. Spoilers are needed for all of these cars, so a spoiler modification adds traction in Los Santos Customs. You can see it on the bar. Even if that bar is full, you need to add the spoiler onto it. It will give you extra traction. Even if it doesn't show any extra traction, like it sometimes doesn't with some vehicles that have downforce, you still need that added traction. It has to be any spoiler that isn't at the very top of the spoilers list. Anything, if you keep it stock, you won't get the traction. If you put anything that isn't the top spot, you'll get the extra traction bonus and higher speeds in the corners. Some of these cars have active spoilers, like the T20 for example, where it will pop up as you're driving. That gives you the extra traction bonus automatically. If that spoiler breaks, then the traction bonus will be removed, so keep that in mind if you're racing with that car. And I obviously do all my testing with off-road wheels, because a lot of supercars and a lot of cars that are in the game in general have an attribute in the game files called tires can clip, and that means that if you equip off-road wheels, they will go smoother over bumps. That is also true of tuner tires, and basically the more tread you have on the tire in terms of width, the easier they will go over bumps. So it's only cars that have that attribute available, and I have made a previous video about that. I'll leave a lot of resources down below in the description to get you caught up on all this kind of stuff. Also, one thing to point out, because this still seems to catch a few people out, is these cars are all fully upgraded, and that means maximum engine, maximum brakes, maximum transmission, and the turbo upgrade, in addition to a spoiler upgrade as well. And even if the acceleration bar in Los Santos Customs is fully maxed out, you still need to add maximum engine, maximum transmission, all those things, because it will still add performance. Basically, engine and turbo upgrades don't just increase acceleration for the cars, they also increase top speed as well. Again, I'll leave a lot of resources for all that kind of stuff that I've covered in the past down below in the description. So we're coming up to the top 10 here as we finish that big group with the Tempesta in 11th place, and we have 10th place for the Divest 8 with a lap time of 1:0.261, which is half a second quicker than what we saw from the Tempesta. And this is why the top 10 kind of sets itself apart, because like I said, we've had 17 cars that were separated by 1 second, and then we immediately jump half a second ahead for 10th place. So the Divest 8 in particular really sets itself apart due to top speed, kind of bucking the trend. And you can check out the 2020 top speed version of this video as well to see where all of these cars rank on that factor. But it's not really until we get to the top 8 that we start to see some remarkable sub 1 minute lap times. Breaking the 1 minute barrier is very hard to do, and not many cars have ever done it. The top 8 supercars here are part of a pretty exclusive group in that respect, so they're all impressive, but even here in this top 8, there's still some that are significantly better than others. So we're obviously starting with 8th place with the Autark there with a 59.9 second lap time, and then the same is true for the XA21, only a fraction quicker with another 59.9, and then we've got the RE7B in 6th place with a 59.7, and these three were the gold standard for supercars, apart from one vehicle which always outclassed them that is now in 4th place, which we'll see. And you know, those 59 second lap times are pretty crazy. But now we've had quite a few recent additions with the latest few DLCs that have dropped these cars completely outside of the top 5, at least for raceable vehicles. So the first of which is the Thrax in 5th place. The Thrax is only slightly quicker than what we just saw with a 59.2 second lap time. It's still half a second quicker than what we just saw from the RE7B, which at this level of lap time, half a second is huge. And these cars are going so quickly, and their lap times are you know, so fast that half a second can make a big difference, especially in a racing situation if you're against equal drivers and you're all driving at the highest level that you can. Now 4th place we've got the Wagner at 59.1, so it's only a 1/10 of a second quicker than the Thrax, less than a 1/10 of a second really, but this was always the king. For a long time the Wagner was the king of the supercars class. It overshadowed obviously the 3 vehicles that I was talking about earlier, and a 59.1 second lap time, so close to 58. It was very, very quick, and that's mainly because of its downforce ability, its ability around the corners in terms of grip. But speaking of ability around the corners in terms of grip, the S80RR came along and beat the Wagner by 4/10 of a second, which is huge. 4/10 of a second is massive, and again, it's all because of the grip around the corners. The S80RR It flies around the corners basically like nothing else. It's essentially a quicker RE7B. Huge levels of downforce, great grip around the corners, and it was the first car ever to, you know, break the 59-second barrier, and that it was so impressive at the time. But it's only in 3rd place, and that's because we've got 2 vehicles at the very top that are basically matched, but also so much quicker than everything else. So into 2nd place, we've got the Krieger first of all. It's scarcely believable to say these kind of lap times, but a 57.8 second lap is absolutely remarkable, especially when you consider the kind of lap times, you know, in 2013, the Entity XF used to be the quickest, and that was a 1 minute 2. We're getting 57 second lap times from the top 2 vehicles, and they're, like I said, they're basically perfectly matched. We'll see a comparison between the two side by side. But the Krieger is ultimately in 2nd place, but it's probably the one that I would recommend for most people. You're going to have a better driving experience in the Krieger and a more consistent driving experience in the Krieger than what you will with our number 1 vehicle, which is, of course, the only one that's left. It's the Emirates. At this point, feel free to subscribe if you haven't already for regular lap time and top speed testing videos and updates when new cars are released, and check out other classes in the playlist. The Emirates is only a fraction quicker than the Krieger, at 57.8 again, so we're talking about a 1/4 of a tenth of a second, you know, a couple of hundredths of a second quicker. They're basically matched. The Emirates probably slightly better in terms of cornering ability, the Krieger with its all-wheel drive slightly better in terms of acceleration, but for all intents and purposes you could choose either of these and you'll be able to compete with the other one. The difference is that the Emirates is rear-wheel drive, as I said the Krieger is all-wheel drive, and is certainly more difficult to get that kind of lap time from it. It requires a lot more from the Emirates to get that kind of lap time, because it's a more difficult car to drive and it's a more difficult car to extract the most out of. So out of the two, obviously, you know, these lap times are almost a full second quicker than 3rd place. So these are the only 2 vehicles really that you can use for supercar races outside of, you know, special situations, which that's track specific. But as we'll see the comparison between them here, side by side, it's amazing how really we'll see that the Emirates very slightly pulls out around the more corner heavy start of the track, and then the Krieger pulls it back a little bit on the acceleration zones in the middle of the track, and then at the end of the circuit they're matched absolutely perfectly. It's pretty incredible, and these 2 cars are, you know, the gold standard for the supercars class now. You want one of these cars. You're basically going to be not competitive in most regular supercar races unless you have one of these. And as you can see, those lap times at the bottom, the difference between them is it's basically negligible. So you can choose either one, whichever one you prefer to drive the most, but my recommendation for most people is going to be the Krieger. You will probably be able to get that lap time more consistently and get a better lap time easier at a sort of lower skill level than what you can from the Emirates. I'm also going to show a comparison here between the very quickest supercar in the class, that is the non-raceable Vigilante, and it only really gets that lap time because of the big boost that it has, the rocket. If you don't have that rocket on the back, it gets about the same lap time as what we're going to see from the Bullet here. I think it's around a 106 lap time that the Vigilante would get without the boost, but this is the kind of difference from the very top of the supercars class with the Vigilante to the very bottom with the Bullet. And it's crazy to think that the 2 top raceable supercars of the Emirates and the Krieger are only a few, you know, only about a second slower than what we're seeing here from the Vigilante with its crazy rocket that can, you know, that's where it basically gets its lap time from. If I were to put a comparison up between, say, the Emirates and the Vigilante, you would see that the Emirates would destroy the Vigilante around the first half of the track, and it's only the rocket boost that pulls the Vigilante back in, especially on that long back straight and out of the very tight hairpin. So yeah, even with this comparison, you can see that there's a big gap in performance between the very top of the supercars class and the very bottom. And when you take into account that the 2 top raceable supercars are only just a little bit slower than the Vigilante, taking a Bullet into a supercars race, you know, it's suicide. You're never going to be able to win if you've got competent drivers in any of the top cars. So the Supercars class, just like pretty much all the other classes in GTA, it has its top cars, it has its bad cars, and if you take one of the worst cars, you're not going to be able to compete. So that's pretty much it for the 2020 Supercars video. It's been a while since I've gone over everything, and this is going to be right for quite a while until at least another DLC and we get new Supercars, which you can check the playlist down below for that. Hopefully this has been helpful. I've tried to cover as much as I can in this first video, and let me know what you think about the list as it stands right now in the comments as well. But that's pretty much it for this one. Consider supporting on Patreon or become a YouTube member if you want to get testing results early, and remember to read the description for more info, comment with your thoughts, like the video if you enjoyed or found it helpful, and subscribe for more. Thank you all so much for watching, I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.